from President Franklin D. Roosevelt, where he asked Congress to declare war on Japan in the wake of the attack on Pearl Harbor from December 7th, 1941. And a little bit of history. The U.S. was the people of the United States at this time was really in an isolationist sort of mentality. The president wasn't. President Roosevelt wasn't. But, World War I had just ended, a decade and a half earlier. And to kind of put that in perspective, if right now was December 7th, 1941, World War I would have ended in, call it 2010. Like if in 2010 the World War I ended, and now, the U.S. is being attacked again, and it just the people weren't the U.S. did not want it. But the war is already going on. Remember, so it happened. It started in 1939. It had kicked off in Europe with the Nazis invading Poland, and France had surrendered in a matter of weeks because of the sort of conflict that the Nazis had brought to their doorstep using Blitzkrieg lightning war. Italy had allied with Germany, Nazi Germany, and the Battle of Britain was raging on. They were trying to bring Britain to the knees. They had allied with the Empire of Japan. Japan was already in conflict with China, among others, and was starting to reach out into the Pacific. And so it was obvious that war was coming. It was like a vice coming around the United States. But the United States was able to keep its neutrality because of the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. If you wanted to bring war to the United States, you had to cross this really big body of water. And I was actually once on holiday in France and talking with some people, and they made their opinion very clear that the reason why France had seen so much conflict but the U.S. hadn't was because of the Atlantic Ocean, which I see their point. So what I love about this speech is the sense of doom, the sense of the fear of annihilation that we get from it. Because keep in mind, this was the last time that the U.S. has declared war, that Congress has declared war on another country. I spent 20 years in the military, and I started serving under President Bush, served under President Bush, President Obama, and President Trump. And I've heard several heads of state give speeches and discuss conflict and things like that. And even after 9/11 and things like that, the U.S. we were afraid, we were looking for dangers, and our way of life was threatened, but it was different. This was annihilation. This was Nazi Germany was in the East, Nazi Germany was in Europe, and now comes, the Empire of Japan from both sides, and they wanted to, stop our country. It was very much a sense of the U.S. will no longer exist. Full stop. Not they just want to hurt us, not that they want to kill us, but the U.S. will no longer exist, just like France. Imagine right now, if you're living in the United States, if France and Germany and now Russia's being invaded, if all these countries that we know about, yes, there's conflict going on over there now, but if they're already they've been conquered by a government, a army, and now that army is looking toward us. And if we lose, there will no longer be a United States of America. That was the fear, the issue that they were facing. And so when the Japanese Empire conducted their sneak attack on Japan, on Hawaiian Islands, on Pearl Harbor, that was it. It was a gamble that didn't quite work out because they were trying to sink they sunk the battleships. They're trying to sink the aircraft carriers. And little known fact so the aircraft carriers were out of Hawaii at the time the bombing occurred, and so they sunk all the battleships, but they didn't get the aircraft carriers. And yes, then they go on and they war on the Battle of Midway Island, which was a really, really interesting study. But this isn't a history thing, but this part's really cool. So I did spend 20 years in the U.S. Navy. The reason why we have the carrier strike groups that we have nowadays is because of Pearl Harbor. You can draw a line straight back to it. All the battleships were sunk, so we didn't have them. We did not have battleships anymore, at least in the Pacific. So the only ships we had were the escort ships, but we had aircraft carriers. and that was it. And a lot of these aircraft carriers had biplanes on it with cloth and wood and stuff like that. So since they were our only assets, and I know that there's a little bit more advanced, they had like Corsairs and stuff, but like they're because that was all we had to start protecting them. So the birth of the aircraft carrier battle groups came around, and so now you had the ships protecting the aircraft carriers, and that led to the Battle of Midway Island, where that was the first aircraft carrier to aircraft carrier engagement, and the two fleets never saw each other. They just bombed each other with aircraft, which was super interesting. So, and I know I might be mixing up my, I know they had, might be mixing up my history a little bit, because I don't think they, in like Midway Island stuff, they didn't have any cloth and string planes. I think they had evolved a little bit, but I know towards the beginning of World War I, in like, it was early in 1941, in the Battle of the Atlantic with the German battleship Bismarck, right? She was crippled by torpedo planes, Avenger torpedo planes that were string and wood. So the U.S. might have been a little more advanced with that. But anyway, so I'm digressing. I love talking about military. But getting back to the speech, what I love about this is that it is from a place of desperation. It is a president saying, not they're coming after us, they're going to hurt us a little bit, we need to be careful. It is the president saying that unless we do something, there will be no United States. Not, it'll be different. Not, we'll have to be careful. It is, no, we will be conquered. And we're already at war, and it's time to get going. So here I'll read the speech by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, and members of the Senate and House of Representatives. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a day which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation and, at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleagues delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. And while this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, it contained no threat or hint of war or of armed attack. It will be recorded that the distance from Hawaii from Japan make it obvious that the attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace. The attack yesterday on the Hawaiian Islands has caused severe damage to American naval and military forces. I regret to tell you that the very many American lives have been lost. In addition, American ships have been reported torpedoed on the high seas between San Francisco and Honolulu. Yesterday, the Japanese government also launched an attack against Malaya. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Hong Kong. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Guam. Last night, Japanese forces attacked the Philippine Islands. Last night, the Japanese attacked Wake Island. And this morning, the Japanese attacked Midway Island. Japan has therefore undertaken a surprise offensive extending through the Pacific area. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. The people of the United States have already formed their opinions and well understand the implications to the very life and safety of our nation. As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I have directed that all measures be taken of our defense. But always will our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us. No matter how long it takes, no matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people and their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. I believe that I interpret the will of the Congress and the people when I assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the uttermost, but we will make very certain that this form of treachery shall never again endanger us. Hostilities exist. There is no blinking at that fact that our people, our territory, and our interests are in grave danger. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph. So help us God. I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It's so cool to read history stuff. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.